What's going on, FA Nation? And happy Wednesday, almost New Year's Eve, almost New Year's Day. I am James Grande, joined by Sean Mitchell. Sean, we have a 6-game slab tonight. How are you feeling about the slate, brother, and how you doing?
Good, man. Good. Glad to be back in it. Big 10-game slate last night. Get a little 6-gamer, medium slate tonight. A little bit easier to digest. We've got a lot of the news already, so it kind of makes it a little bit easier once you start building your lineups. I know we're got the later start time tonight, which is good too. So get a little extra time there to wait on any kind of additional news that we might have. Don't really think we're waiting on much more. Maybe Kawhi. Other than that, pretty much everything's kind of clear cut so far. So it should be a good one.
Yeah, and of course, like LeBron is questionable, but as everyone I'm sure knows by now, because everyone has given him a birthday shout out on every social media platform, it is his birthday. There is 0 to 0.1 chance that he sits tonight, but he is listed as questionable. So him and Kawhi are currently the two we are waiting on. Because we did get news just before we hopped on air, Jason Tatum will play. LaMarcus Aldridge will not. He is out tonight. And Josh Richardson, who I think was an interesting member of the questionable clan, is currently probable. So those three, we got news as Sean mentioned. Let's hop over to Vegas for a second, where there is a clear-cut number one game on the board, at least from a Vegas total perspective. That is Atlanta-Brooklyn, 239. It started at 241. We're down to 239. 6-point favorites are Brooklyn. There is Milwaukee-Miami. That is up from 222 to 228.5. Milwaukee only 6-point favorites after making a NBA record 29 three-pointers last night. And then we have the Lakers, San Antonio, 229, Clippers, Portland, 226. Sean, are you ready to jump into this 6-game slate?
Oh, yes, sir. I was born ready. Let's do it.
Let's go over to the point guard position. As always, we'll break it down position by position, where at the top we have two guys over 10K on DraftKings. That's Luka Doncic and Damien Lillard. Sean, we're Luka guys. We are through and through Luka guys. But it feels like we're getting to a point, and we're only a few weeks into the season, but it feels like everyone tries to jam in stars on every slate. And this feels like a slate, and obviously Luka and Giannis could prove us wrong. This feels like a slate where you don't need to. There feels like there are a lot of elite plays at, the tier below. How much exposure to Luka and to Lillard are you getting tonight? And are you also on the same line of thinking with me, where we can drop down to the next tier and be perfectly fine and be more comfortable with our builds?
Well, I mean, I think there's enough value on the slate that you can get up to Luka. I don't think that, you have to go fair and balanced, but I also don't think you got to totally go stars and scrubs on this slate. I mean, like you said, there's a lot in that 5 to 6K range that can make, for some really good lineups and can kind of balance it out a little bit where you're not just totally punting, at a couple spots. So I think that you can get to Luka. Damien Lillard, he has yet to have a Damien Lillard game, and I know it's coming, but, I don't think it'll be tonight. I hope it won't be tonight because, I'm all about some Luka again tonight. That's just he's the only guy. Well, I say he's the only guy. Seeing Giannis being as low owned as, half the ownership of Luka at the time on DraftKings kind of worries me a little bit because, it is a 6-point spread with Miami and Milwaukee tonight. It rose all the way up to almost 10.5, 11 yesterday. So we already knew that it was probably going to end up something like that. But they're thinking it might stay a little bit closer tonight. So that makes that one a little bit interesting. But yeah, I mean, Luka carrying near 40% usage rate. We know, being John talked about it. I know you talked about it as well, how in that last game against the Clippers where they were totally demolishing them, he only played 25 minutes and he was on his way to a triple-double. So, yeah, I think, tonight we get a full game in. Really like that game. Talked about it on the pod last night. I think I've said it to a few people today, I think this is a game that you can stack up.
I do too. I just think when we move down the list, there's someone named Kyrie Irving in a 239 total. And we have seen the upside this year from Kyrie. He's gone for 60 already, and he's given us a nice floor of about 40 as well. that's kind of where I'm living tonight. And I didn't include Trae Young in the playbook, but obviously on the flip side of this game, Trae Young is firmly in play for tournaments as well. I'm not. You just can't. We're just not going to sit here and include every single player in the NBA in our playbooks.
Nope.
If you had a lean between Kyrie and Trae, how do you feel?
Obviously, I mean, I think Trae's going to come in with a ton of lower ownership here. I mean, here's the thing. When you're looking at these two teams and the makeups, Kyrie has another partner in crime there that's going to be vying for 35% usage rate and a guy named Kevin Durant, where Trae Young, who's he really vying for, for usage here? There's really not just another huge name on his team that, we got to worry about that, oh man, he could, drop 50, 60 points. No, that's Trae Young. He is that guy on that team. He's the only one. So for me, in GPPs, if you can get a Trae Young at, sub 10% on a slate like this and the highest total game on the board, I think that's kind of how you got to go.
Right, and I think that's the kicker. I will say, just to counter your argument, Kyrie Irving, 30.7% usage rate, currently higher than Kevin Durant. Just to throw that caveat out there. Let's move down the point guard position to, I think, some interesting mid to value tier guys in DeJounte Murray and Tyler Hero. I know we have a very big position discrepancy for Tyler Hero, where for whatever reason he's a small forward on FanDuel. Again, there's literally no reason for it. He's probably played that position never. Never would probably be the answer. Right, and he's 4,500 on FanDuel, so obviously get your exposure there. But talk to me about DeJounte Murray without LaMarcus Aldridge. The FanDuel price a little high for my liking, but 6,100 on DraftKings for one of maybe the best rebounding guards in the NBA without one of their best rebounders. What are your thoughts on DeJounte here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you easily got to take a look here at DraftKings for sure at 6.1. That's just too fair of a price. This should be a decent. Hopefully, this game stays a little close. I mean, we do worry about the blowout. I mean, we know that LaMarcus Aldridge is out. He is one of the key scorers for the Spurs, or has been in prior years. So you're taking him off the floor. Does give a bump to Murray. We already see that he was averaging right around a 23% usage rate, 1.24 fantasy point per minute. That's pretty good numbers. Second highest on the team in the usage, and now he gets the no LMA here. So I think Murray is definitely in play. Like him definitely for tournaments, especially on DK for that price.
The line on that game for anyone curious at home, since LaMarcus Aldridge has been ruled out, moved from 4.5 to 6. The Lakers are 6-point favorites. So not a big move, but a move of 1.5 points is a little interesting. It is a home game for San Antonio. Let's shift over to shooting guard position, where I think this is probably the weakest position on the board. I really like Jaylen Brown, and we were kind of talking before we got on air. Even with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown has been a monster. Oh, yeah. And let's talk about usage rates real quick. Jaylen Brown leads Boston in usage, not Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum is leading in fantasy points per minute. Jaylen Brown is the leader, the clubhouse leader in usage rate. So I love Jaylen Brown here, and I don't really love the rest of the position. So why don't you just throw out a couple names at shooting guard that you like? Because I liked Tim Hardaway, but that was before Josh Richardson was ruled in. Tim Hardaway had a 35% usage without Richardson on the floor. I like Richardson as Luka's partner in crime, but where else are you looking at the shooting guard position?
I'm with you on Jaylen Brown. I think he's probably one of my favorites, on the slate as a whole, because he's coming in with decent ownership, especially on DraftKings, which is where I'm looking at him at. He's cheaper over there. As you mentioned, he's actually leading the team in usage. So, that for me, I'm probably definitely going to go there and not worry too much. Dylan Brooks is very interesting. He's going to be playing over 30 minutes. We know with Ja Morant out, he's going to bump his usage rate over 30%. He's fresh off of a good game, too, when Ja Morant went out. We know he's going to take a gazillion shots. So, I mean, I think Dillon Brooks, I think that game is probably a good one to look at too. With Boston and Memphis, we know Memphis plays with fast pace. I know Morant is out, which might hurt that a little bit, but still yet, Brooks should have the usage. The minutes should be there. He's going to be probably the main scorer on this team. You know, he's going to have to be the guy now. I don't expect Tyus Jones to be scoring 30 points a game. So I think it's going to be Dillon Brooks that has to take on that role. Other than that, I was with you on Tim Hardaway. Not so much there anymore.
Right.
It's just, something that I don't think I can get there. I mean, I know we didn't mention C.J. McCollum, who, has looked really good lately, but his price has gotten up there. It is a good matchup here with the Clippers, but it's one of the lower totals on the board as well. So, and he's been taking 25 shots a game. So can he sustain that? We don't really know. I think Brooks is probably the best in that mid-tier as far as looking at that. I know you can get Tyler Hero on shooting guard on DraftKings, not on FanDuel, but he is projected to be very high owned. Other than that, I think you're gonna have to go down. It gets really bleak in this spot, and that's why you mentioned it was real thin at the shooting guard spot. And I totally agree.
Just a tidbit on Josh Richardson: 20.4 usage or percent usage rate, not 0.94 fantasy points per minute. Pretty good numbers for a mid-tier guy who's kind of been Luka's sidekick, I guess you can say, more consistent than Tim Hardaway at least. And I think you can go down to Lonnie Walker without LaMarcus Aldridge. Walker playing big minutes, and if this game is to stay close, Walker, has scored 14 or more actual points in all 3 games this year. So I do think Walker's value, and I'll toss Avery Bradley into the mix last night. He looked like the only good player on Miami last night outside of Tyler Hero, and only played 24 minutes because of the blowout. Why risk Avery Bradley in a blowout? But let's shift our attention to small forward, where we have LeBron, and I guess the question becomes, what is your expectation for birthday boy LeBron in a fairly good matchup against San Antonio? It's actually a very good paced spot for the Lakers here. So what is your expectation for LeBron? Do you prefer him to Davis? Like, how do you break down the Lakers situation there?
I don't know. I mean, neither one have just really been, just totally smashing lately. They both kind of played, LeBron playing 36 minutes last game was very, very encouraging. That's kind of what we expect to see out of these two guys. AD's kind of floated around that 33, 31-minute range. I don't know. I mean, LeBron, he's been questionable with that ankle. If he is a go, is he 100%? We don't really know. That could be something, you kind of keep in the back of your head too when you're paying, 10.5 or 10K for a guy. It is his birthday. If you're into the narrative thing, that's something that some people really like to get into. I try not to get as far into it as I shouldn't.
Right.
But, LeBron, fresh off a 55-pointer, as you mentioned, it should be a good pace spot for them. Not, looking like he's going to have very much ownership either. It's real hard to get LeBron James sub 10% on any given night. And I expect that to probably go up. But, in the same fact, we might not get that news until, the game doesn't even kick off till 8:30, 9:30. So might not have that news until before tip. So you could typically fall into a low on LeBron James here on his birthday night. I mean, he could go for the narrative.
Add a sub 10K price tag on DraftKings. Just throw that out there because we don't see that very often. So I do think he's very intriguing in tournaments. And I think people will stay away because that questionable tag. And
exactly.
Maybe people don't realize it is his birthday. I don't know how because I see people posting about LeBron's birthday and not their significant others. So I digress there. Let's move down the rest of the position where I think we have, I want to say 3 very elite options. And I mean elite in every inch of the word. In Chris Middleton, Gordon Hayward, DeMar DeRozan. We know DeRozan is playing without LaMarcus Aldridge, and there is every indication why we're talking about a guy, 30% usage, 1.7 fantasy points per minute this year without LaMarcus Aldridge. Then we get Gordon Hayward, who is, has looked like the Utah version of Gordon Hayward, and we're getting a solid ceiling floor combination at a very still discounted price. I mean, he probably should be in the 8K range if I'm being honest. And then Chris Middleton, who once again last night in just 25 minutes says, I'll just drop a 40 burger, drop 40 fantasy points in 25 minutes and call it a night. So how are you assessing this tier? For me, DeRozan feels like the cash play right now.
Right. He's
especially Aldridge. Hayward and Middleton, even though I see their ownership, in the teens, feels like that's even higher than I expect, and I feel like they'll check in closer to 10%, and they kind of feel like the tournament guys to me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Chris Middleton is if we expect this game to be close, as the Vegas total is kind of suggesting that this game might be closer. I really like Chris Middleton because I think he's going to be the one that drops the most, because I think everybody's going to probably play Gordon Hayward, even myself. Really like the spot for Hayward. We know that game's probably going to have a little bit of pace with Dallas. And it's a game that can go up and down the floor. And like I said, I think it's really highly stackable. And I think he is definitely one of the core players that you have to have in that stack. And seeing him coming in with lower ownership makes me really happy, because I didn't want to really play a chalky Gordon Hayward, and he might be. I mean, he might gain some, but I think a lot of that's going to DDR right now, considering LaMarcus Aldridge is out, and everybody knows that DDR is going to be that main guy. So it kind of attracts me more to Chris Middleton in tournaments, because I think, like we said, he dropped 40 fantasy points in 25 minutes last night, and he really didn't even have to try. I mean, Giannis really didn't even do anything. So, we've seen this all season so far from Chris Middleton. The guy's just been playing absolutely amazing basketball. And, I mean, I think he's going to do it again tonight. I mean, he's pretty much done it every night. So, I think Chris Middleton is definitely attractive for me in tournaments. I think both Gordon Hayward and DeMar DeRozan are probably more cash. Obviously, DDR probably definitely more cash now that his ownership is looking to be in the 30-ish range. Something I don't really want to touch, but 6.9 on DraftKings.
I know that's the kicker, right? Isn't that the kick? That's the kicker, because why is he that price? There's no reason that he should be that price. Obviously, when DraftKings released their algorithm, there was LaMarcus Aldridge was playing,
right?
But there's only been one bad game for DeRozan, and we're talking about a guy who was 1 assist and rebound shy of a triple-double. The next game, he went 27, 8, and 5. And then, he had a bad shooting night, but still had 10 assists. So what is the algorithm saying that DeMar DeRozan is 69? That's the kicker for me, and it seems like it's the kicker for you. It seems like I might see Sean Mitchell play a 30% player tonight. True or false? No? Okay. Just, just throwing that out there, just getting it engraved in your mind so you go change your lineups and play.
I wanted to look at how he did, and I know LMA probably didn't play every single game last year against the Lakers with him, but DDR in 3 games against the Lakers last season, he averaged 22 points, 6.3 rebounds, 5.7 assists, and had a steal and 2 blocks. 3 games is pretty good numbers. I mean,
pretty good numbers.
Average of 34 minutes a game, had a usage rate right under 29% at 28.6. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to not like, but, again, I think it's more of a cash play, and I'm just a tournament player.
At the value tier, we do have the likes of Keldon Johnson, DDR's teammate, who has looked phenomenal to start this year, and then DeAndre Hunter. But I put it in the playbook. Playing Atlanta wings from their shooting guard to power forward is like playing Russian roulette, because there are so many good players at shooting guard, small forward, power forward for Atlanta, but who knows who is going to be the guy or 2 of the guys on any given night, because we could just see Trey and John Collins soak up all the usage. Do you think Hunter is viable? He is starting. Bogdanovich is coming off the bench. Do you lean Hunter over? Reddish is also starting. How? I guess just break down that little trio of guys, because how do you break down Hunter, Reddish, Bogdanovich? Who do you like the most of them?
I think Reddish comes in with the lowest ownership, and we've already seen him put up a couple of good games already.
And he's the cheapest. And he's the cheapest of the 3.
And he's the cheapest play. I mean, he's had 26 and 0.75 fantasy points in 2 of the 3 games so far. He's played 24 more minutes in every game. He doesn't garner the most usage. I think that's easily got to go to Bogdanovic because he's going to shoot every time he gets the ball. And, Bogdanovic has got some ownership on the slate tonight that I didn't think that he was going to have. But, I mean, when you're looking at a game with a 240-point total, you're probably going to have most of those guys with ownership. I don't really know if I'm on any of the Hawks tonight. I just don't, like you said, it can be any three of those trio of guys. Gallinari is questionable, might play. So that kind of takes away from wanting to play those bench guys from the Hawks as well, because we know that he's going to be in there and gaining some shots too. So I think Keldon Johnson here is really interesting. Like you said, he's been playing really well. I know we weren't talking about him in the trio, but he was kind of in that range. I know it's a little bit more expensive, but I think he's the one guy, and I'm playing him tonight, which I thought I should go ahead and include. So he's been playing really well. I think I would just go with him.
Yeah, and he's getting time. He's playing a lot of minutes, 28, 31, 32. He's been really good. He's been really good on the glass too. And again, we circle back to the DeJounte Murray argument where, there's no Aldridge, there's rebounds to be had. So Keldon Johnson, double incoming. I don't know if that's a bold take or not, but I do think there's a double on the horizon. Let's shift over to power forward where, again, and it's literally the same discussion we had last night, Sean. Giannis is coming in pretty lower owned than we expect Giannis to be on DraftKings, but the price is an issue, and the upside has been an issue because Middleton's been really good. We saw a flash of Jrue Holiday on Monday. DiVincenzo's been scoring double-digit actual points per game. So I'll just ask, do you spend up on Giannis? Do you spend up on Davis, or do we just easy pivot to Kevin Durant at 8,400?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I'm going to spend up for Luka because I think that he has the more chance of his team to do that. Anthony Davis, if LeBron plays, he's got to share that usage with him. Same with Giannis. He's got to share it with Chris Middleton, with Jrue Holiday. So Luka is kind of the guy on his own here in my thinking that he's the only one on his team that has that kind of usage rate. So yeah, I mean, I'm probably just going to stick with Luka, not totally have to punt by trying to get in two of these stars. And that's just kind of how my builds have gone. All day long, I've just been basically basing it off Luka and building around him with some mid-tier guys.
Yeah, and I think the next tier down is interesting. I think most people are thinking like you, and they're going to go to Kevin Durant because Kevin Durant is 8,400. For whatever reason, he shouldn't be 8,400. For me, Kevin Durant profiles more as a cash play. He's been at around 40 fantasy points every night, and that's fine at 8,400. But will we get the upside eventually? And it might be tonight in a 240 total, but right now it really does profile more as a cash play. That's not me saying you can't play Kevin Durant wherever you want to play Kevin Durant, but the ownership suggests cash. The production suggests cash. I think somewhere in tournaments that both you and I are on is the next guy down, PJ Washington, who was super chalky on opening night and let everyone down and then broke the slate on back-to-back nights with no ownership. And I put this in the playbook, has not even shot. He's made 1 3 in 3 games, and this is a guy who is lethal from behind the arc. If PJ Washington can get the 3 ball down too, I mean, I think sky's the limit here at $5,400 when, let's face it, there's not a lot of value on this slate.
No, I mean, I totally like him. I wrote him up in the value vault. I think he's definitely in play. I mean, his defensive numbers have been really good. And like you said, he's playing lots of minutes. He played 21 in the first game, 29, and then 35 last game. Right. And like you said, he's not been shooting the ball really well. 7 of 15 and 6 of 16 in the last 2 games. But, 12 rebounds, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks, and 4 steals between the 2 games. That's where he's making his bread. So if he hits a few more of those shots, this guy can easily put up a 50-pointer. I mean, and you're getting him at 5.4K on DraftKings. I think that's just a steal of the price, especially if he can start hitting that 3 ball.
Someone I just want to get your take on, because I think he's falling by the wayside, and maybe Carmelo Anthony being back just eats into his playing time a little bit. But Bob Cove has not been great, right? Let's face it, he has not been great. but he hasn't been bad peripherally. If you take a look at his stats, I mean, 4 or more rebounds in each game this year. He's had 2 games of at least 2 assists. He's had 2 games of 2 or more steals. The shots just aren't falling. And we know if Covington starts hitting shots, we're looking at 40-point upside because the peripherals are generally there, especially defensively. Could this be a spot for Rob Covington, who's under 5K, which we haven't seen in quite some time, and under 10% projected draft percentage? Could this be a spot for Covington in tournaments to really break out, or is Melo scaring you off? Or
no, I mean, I just say I don't think he's that attractive because all he does is shoot threes really. So he's basically a 3-and-D wing. You're basically relying on him to get rebounds and steals, and he hasn't had but 1 block in 3 games. So you're not really relying on blocks. So I think a lot of his upside is going to be capped by him not being driving, shooting mid-range. He's not going to be that guy that's going to just be the putback board guy. He's basically a 3-and-D wing. And like you said, Carmelo coming back, he's going to be fighting for shots. And then, that whole team is just dominated by C.J. McCollum, who's taking 24, 25 shots, Damien Lillard, who's taking 15 to 20 shots. There's just not enough to go around. And I just don't think that Cove will have that kind of upside that you're going to need for tournaments to win one for sure.
Okay, and that's fine, and that's why I wanted to get your take, because the GPP aficionado has spoken. No Bob Cove. Let's finish us off at center, where it's another bleak-looking position. Jonas Valanciunas tops the list, along with Bam Adebayo. Both are priced similarly across the board. I could not believe my eyes when I saw Jonas Valanciunas play 39 minutes in a basketball game, not like spanning over 2 games, because that's generally when he gets to 40 minutes is across 2 outings. Do we like Valanciunas with a matchup against Daniel Tice, with a matchup against Robert Williams? Probably only tournaments, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've been let down by Joval a lot too. It is very encouraging seeing the minutes. That's exactly what we want. We've said it plenty of times last season. Give the guy 35 minutes. We know he can smash. He has such a good plus matchup here against Boston. I think it's going to be hard to not play him. But I mean, I personally am paying down at center because I just think there's other spots that I prioritized above the center spot tonight. I think I'm looking more at the guards, paying up for a little bit of a forward, and then kind of going down on the center spot because I think there are some mid-tier spots in the center list here that you can go and play. So Joval, even though I think he's a really good play, me and John talked about that on the pod pretty extensively, I couldn't make him fit in the builds. So.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? Roster construction, and it's something that we just talked about. Like, we beg and beg for minutes, and we get the minutes, but this price is a little higher than it's been. Somewhere we're probably a little uncomfortable going.
6.4, 6.1.
Right, and that price, you're locking and loading. I mean, at that price, you're locking and loading. This makes you think because if he doesn't get you 50, there really is an upside. If he gets you 45, great. Like 5.5x, 6x, cool. But that's not going to win you a tournament. So I do agree. But at the price tag we want Jonas Valanciunas is Jusuf Nurkic. I know that you like Enes Kanter. I know John likes Enes Kanter. I think Jusuf Nurkic is – I mean, obviously it's the same exact spot, right? We have the starter in the same exact spot who's just as skilled offensively, probably more likely to get a couple blocks than Kanter or a little defensive metric here and there. Do we like Nurkic, or are you just saying, screw it, I don't want to pay up for Nurkic, I'm just going down to Kanter?
I'm not, I don't know. Like I said, the way I prioritize the slate, it didn't allow me to pay over probably 5K for a center, which I was right around that 5.5 mark, and I had a couple guys that I had penciled in, and I just, that's just how I decided to go with it. So, yeah, Nurk, I mean, we saw some really good games last season. He started off the season pretty good. Had a couple. He's had his last 2 games have been good. They've been good. They have not been great.
Right.
He's only taken 7 shots, 9 shots. That's something he's, again, with this Portland team, we know who the ball's going to. We know who's going to be shooting all the shots. So, again, the 11 and 12 rebounds in the last 2 games, very, very encouraging. He even had 6 assists in one of those games. It's 1 steal, 1 block in those 2 games. Defensive metrics aren't exactly there, but he easily could come up with, a block or 2 and a steal. I'm not saying he couldn't. But the 26 minutes last game and then the 22 minutes in game 1, his minutes have been sporadic simply because Cantor has came in and played well. I mean, Cantor's minutes have been more consistent than Nurk's. I mean, and he's $3,000 cheaper. So,
I mean, let's be fair. That first game was a blowout. So they're not going to play Nurkic in a blowout. That's going to be Cantor time. So I don't think it's fair to just throw away or just to say that Nurkic didn't play in game 1 and they chose Cantor, because that's not the case. In a close game, the next game we saw Nurkic play 35 minutes. So as much I do think Cantor has a role, but I think Nurkic is the clear-cut center. But in blowouts, if this game did get out of hand, we're going to see Enes Kanter. And I think that's a good punt. I also think Robert Williams is a good punt because, like Kanter, I think in a blowout, Robert Williams plays. And he's also going to play about 20 minutes, probably as the backup center. So it's kind of like the James Wiseman argument, where we've seen James Wiseman start, but we've seen James Wiseman also finish games in blowouts because they want to get him run. I could see Robert Williams being the primary backup and then just finishing the game if this was out of hand at all. And Boston is a much better team all around, especially with Jason Tatum, than Memphis is without John Morant. So I think Williams and Kanter are the clear-cut punts at the center position. Sean, before we get out of here, it is 6:32. Anything you got for FA Nation out there before we head out?
Yeah, play some Brandon Clark.
Play some Brandon Clark. The final word from the one and only Sean Mitchell. Big shout out to John and Pemba for producing this live stream. We'll be back again tomorrow, 6 p.m. Per usual, full days of work, podcast, playbook, fast break, core play article. You name it, we got it. Value Vault, starting 5, you name it, we got it. And we'll catch you guys in chat over the next hour because, again, 7:30 lock. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Good luck.